Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me today. My name is Courtney Rooks, and today I'll be presenting a climate adaptation plan for Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis faces significant challenges due to climate change, particularly around extreme heat and flooding. These challenges pose real threat to the health and well-being of our most vulnerable communities. The goal of today's presentation is to outline a comprehensive, realistic adaptation plan that will help the city mitigate these impacts while also addressing the needs of the most at risk. I'll discuss the key climate hazard Memphis faces, introduce two specific adaptation strategies, and outline how we can engage stakeholders to ensure the plan's success. Climate hazards phase. Memphis is particularly vulnerable to two climate hazards: extreme heat. The frequency and intensity of heat waves are rising. Mid-urban heat island effect exacerbates already high summer temperatures. Many areas, especially low-income neighborhoods, are much hotter than others due to the lack of greenery and high pavement density. Flooding. Memphis is also highly vulnerable to flooding due to the proximity to the Mississippi and the Wolf Rivers. Stormwater infrastructures are located in low-income neighborhoods, often located in flood-prone areas, bear the brunt of the flood-related damages. Flooding can cause property damage, displacement, and health issues like waterborne diseases. Climate change has increased storm intensity, overwhelming our aging stormwater infrastructures, and cause frequent floods in certain communities. These hazards pose serious health risks to Memphis residents, particularly for low-income, elderly, and outdoor workers, which is why we need to target solutions to protect these groups. Vulnerable communities. Climate change disproportionately affects our most vulnerable populations. In Memphis, communities that are already underserved and under-resourced, such as low-income home households, African American neighborhoods, the elderly, and people with existing health issues, face the greatest risk. These residents are more likely to live in flood-prone areas, less likely to have access to cooling resources during heat waves, and often lack the financial means to recover from climate impacts. Action 1. The first adaptation action focuses on extreme heat, urban heat island mitigation with green fractures. Memphis' urban heat island effect is a major contributor to raising temperatures, particularly in low income and densely populated neighborhoods. To address this, we will focus on expanding green fractures by including tree planting campaigns. Trees provide natural shade, reducing surface temperatures by up to 10 degrees Fahrenheit in some cases. We will plant thousands of trees in neighborhoods with a high heat vulnerability, focusing on low income areas. Green roofs. We'll introduce a green roof initiative program for commercial and residential buildings in high density areas to help cool down the city's most heat affected zones. Our goal will be No, green roofs not only reduce the need for air conditioning by lowering indoor temperatures, but also improve air quality and storm water management. And third, public cooling centers. We'll retrofit public buildings like libraries, schools, community centers to serve as cooling centers during heat waves. These will be accessible to elderly, low income households, and outdoor workers. The key stakeholders for the heat adaptation. To make the green and fracture plan a reality, we will need to engage a few key stakeholders. Memphis City government. They will oversee the implementation of the tree planting and manage the Green Roof Initiative program. Nonprofit organizations and community groups. Groups like Clean Memphis and the Urban Green Lab can help with tree planting efforts and community outreach. Shelby County Health Departments. They will work on public health education campaigns about heat related risks and cooling center access. By working together, we can ensure that the communities most impacted by extreme heat receive the support they need. Action 2: Flood resilience and fracture and preparedness. The second adaptation action focuses on flooding. Low income neighborhoods, particularly those near the Mississippi and Wolf River, are most vulnerable to flooding. To mitigate flood risk, the plan includes stormwater and fracture upgrades. Will improve and expand stormwater systems by upgrading drains, adding retention basins, and installing permeable pavement in flood-prone areas. These upgrades will reduce surface runoff and prevent flooding. Community-based preparedness programs. We will launch a public education campaign working with local communities, organizations to distribute information about flood preparedness, sandbagging, and evacuation routes. Residents will be encouraged to purchase flood insurance with outreach conduct in multiple languages to reach non-English speakers, as well as making educational materials that will be made available in multiple languages as well to ensure accessible to all residents. Key stakeholders for the flood adaptation. Key stakeholders for the flood resilience and fracture and preparedness includes Memphis Public Works Department. They will lead the stormwater and fracture upgrades. FEMA and Tennessee Emergency Management Agency. These agencies can provide technical support and funding for flood mitigation programs. Community-based organization. Local nonprofits and grassroots groups will be instrumental to reaching residents in vulnerable neighborhoods, ensuring that everyone is informed and prepared for flood events. Communication strategies. A vital component of this plan is our communication strategy. Effective communication ensures that all stakeholders are ensured, engaged, and on board. Here's how we plan to do that. City officials. For city officials, we will focus on cost benefit analysis and long term savings these projects will generate. Clear data showing reduced healthcare costs, and flood recovery expenditures will be used to justify investments. Community organizations will collaborate with grassroots organizations to have deep ties to vulnerable neighborhoods. They will help spread information about cooling centers, flood preparedness, and adaptation benefits through direct community engagement. Funders will approach funders with a result based presentation, highlighting expected outcomes and demonstrating the long term public health benefits and financial savings that will come from investing in green infrastructures and flood resilience. Residents. Our outreach to the residents will focus on acceptability. We will use plain language, offer translated materials, utilize trusted community leaders to ensure the message about preparedness and available resources reaches everyone. Implementation timeline. Now, let's look at the timeline for implementing these adaptation actions. Year 1. Start with a pilot program for the tree planting and green roofs in 2 high-risk neighborhoods. At the same time, initiate a flood preparedness education campaign in collaboration with local organizations. Year 2 and 3. Expand the tree planting and green roof citywide and complete the first phase of the stormwater infrastructure upgrades. Also, track community engagement with cooling centers and flood preparedness programs. Year 4 and 5. Evaluate the effectiveness of the green infrastructure in reducing temperatures and the success of the flood mitigation efforts. Being scaling successful strategies across Memphis while adjusting the plan based on community feedback and health data. The evacuation and accountability plan. The success of our climate adaptation plan will be measured using both short term and long term metrics. Short term metrics. These include the number of trees planted, the number of green roofs installed, attendance at the flood preparedness workshops, and cooling centers usage during heat waves. Long term metrics will monitor reduction in heat related illnesses and flood related injuries, as well as an overall reduction in emergency room visits, hospitalization, and property damage from climate events. We'll also assess how well vulnerable communities are served, using public health data to ensure that these populations are benefiting from the adaptation strategies. Conclusion. A climate resilient future for Memphis. Memphis faces serious challenges from climate change, but by focusing on green infrastructures and flood resilient systems, we can protect the most vulnerable members of our community. With collaborations from key stakeholders, careful planning, and ongoing evacuation, these adaptation strategies will build a safer and more resilient future for Memphis. Memphis faces significant climate risk, but by focusing on sustainable adaptation strategies like the green infrastructure and flood resilience, we can protect our most vulnerable communities and build a safer, healthier future for the city. I look forward to working with you to make this plan a reality. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions if you have any. Again, thank you for your time and listening to my climate adaptation plans for Memphis, Tennessee. Good night.